Hello, MECLA, Materials and Embodied Carbon Leaders Alliance, and hello to all of you who are joining us for the first time as well. We are an alliance that works across the entire ecosystem that makes up the built environment and incorporating all participants across this system, whether they're industry, government, research and others, so that together we can lower embodied carbon across the built environment. My name is Kati Verheyen and I'm Senior Project Manager of MECLA and part of the MECLA Secretariat. Welcome to today's briefing on facilitating procurement of low carbon concrete by councils in New South Wales and obviously beyond. Before we get into things, can I please ask you all to join the Menti link on the screen here and let me know where you are joining us from. You can also join us, on your phone by using the QR code on this slide or through your computer by going to Menti, adding the code or using the link that my colleague Alexi will be putting into the chat. While you are joining Menti, let us get started. Today's event is going to be a great one. We have a great range of presenters and panelists from New South Wales DCCEEW, from our representatives of different New South Wales councils, as well as concrete suppliers. We will be receiving a short introduction to the low emissions specification program from New South Wales DCCEEW and then hear from ARUP about the deliverables that they have been developing in connection to this program. Following that, we'll have two short panel discussions, one featuring local council representatives addressing the demand side, and the second one featuring concrete manufacturers and talking about the supply side. And then we'll hear about a little bit about what's the next steps for this program. But before I hand over to the first speaker, I want to take a minute to recognise that I am joining you today from the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, otherwise known as Sydney. We are all on Indigenous land around the country today, and I want to pay my respect to elders past and present. This is, for me, a very important acknowledgement, always and every day. And I'm sure it is for every one of you, and it's fantastic to see how this little word cloud is growing already. MECLA, as you know, operates in a pre-competition environment. It is important that our governance mechanism is recognised. We do that because we are operating across an ecosystem that needs to collaborate if we are to reduce embodied carbon, if we are going to achieve our goal there. And no matter how willing every single one of us or every party of us is, we can't do this, we can't achieve this on our own. That's why we have to do it through collaboration. And of course, collaboration at times can be anti-competitive, but this is not happening for us here. And with that, without further ado, let me introduce you to Alberto Jimenez, Senior Project Officer at New South Wales DCCEEW, who will introduce us to the low emission specification program that they have been developing. Alberto, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. So yes, my name is Alberto Jimenez. I work with the New South Wales Government within the Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water. And for the past year, we've been working on supporting councils and New South Wales government agencies better procure and specify low carbon concrete. So sitting behind all this effort is a policy background. You may be aware of existing policies driving this kind of decarbonization and reducing embodied carbon emissions from New South Wales government operations. As it relates to councils, my experience is that even though councils do not currently have dedicated embodied carbon strategies, they are relying on existing commitments to manage net zero emissions and just extending these mandates to now cover scope 3 emissions. So this is a big signal of the upcoming interest and demand for low carbon concrete. Next slide, please. Supporting that effort by councils and New South Wales government agency, there's a number of programs by the New South Wales government, such as this one, MECLA, but also the low emission specifications product program which I'm part of. Next slide. If you are part of the industry and you're looking for support to decarbonize either your operations or support the manufacturing of low carbon products here in New South Wales, here's a couple of programs by the New South Wales aim at helping you this journey. Next slide, please. So as I said, for the past year, program has been working on low carbon concrete. We developed requirements or specifications for low carbon concrete, and then we work with 10 councils across New South Wales, and we try to implement these requirements. We are now at the end of this project, and today I wanted to take the opportunity to share with you the results and all the available resources, but also not just the specifications. We actually developed more than 6 fact sheets and resources. We also gather a lot of insights. So if you're a council, you probably want to know whether there are products right now in New South Wales and in your local area that meet these requirements. And you probably also want to know how are other councils implementing low carbon concrete and try to understand their challenges and barriers. Lastly, this version of the program, as I said, is coming to an end. And we got together diverse teams within these councils. We got leadership teams, procurement teams, engineers and designers, down to the project teams. And it was often the first time that they ever met to discuss low carbon concrete or embodied carbon. The program was quite successful. It accelerated their understanding of embodied carbon and opportunities of implementing low carbon concrete. But, you know, kind of spoiler alert, the program was quite successful in raising awareness, but awareness is very, very different from councils going and immediately implementing long-term procurement and sustainability strategies that reduce embodied carbon emissions. So as I said, our program is coming to an end, but we are now considering future support and initiatives for councils. So today, we really want to hear your honest feedback on what are the remaining challenges within your councils. And I know some councils have mentioned, you know, further need to buy-in from to get buy-in from leadership teams and councillors. You may need data and engagement in order to update your procurement policies. So we really want to understand what else can be done for councils and what initiatives can be done efficiently as a group instead of having, you know, 128 councils trying different approaches. We're trying to understand what can we do as a group. So with that said, I'll happy to introduce Lauren Howe from the Arab team. They have been our technical delivery partner for the past year, developing the specifications and kind of conducting this industry engagement at large in order to develop the specifications, but also kind of gather the information and the evidence required for councils. Thank you. I'll pass it on to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Alberto. So I'm just going to start with kind of setting the context of what is low carbon concrete and when we're referring to this term. So low carbon concrete is a concrete that is produced with a lower carbon footprint than a traditional concrete mix. And I think the main thing here to make clear is that low carbon concrete has to still meet the same specified technical and performance requirements. So as an example, you might have, I don't know, a concrete curb with a 32 MPa concrete. If it is a traditional concrete mix or a low carbon concrete mix, it will still have to meet that same 32 MPa strength requirement, as well as other requirements in terms of, for example, durability. When we generally, what you'll hear in the industry of when we're referring to low carbon concrete, this is typically where people are talking about where some of the cement in the concrete mix has been replaced with supplementary cementitious materials, SCM. So you'll likely hear today people referring to SCM yeah, examples of those are fly ash and blast furnace slag. If you want to know more about the technical, we've got lots of resources, but we're not going to go into that today because we want to actually hear from a number of panelists that we've got with you. But before then, I just wanted to give an overview of what we have actually delivered as part of this program. So we started, the first part of the project was to work with 3 New South Wales government agencies to develop specification requirements that they can incorporate into their projects, and that's both building and infrastructure assets. From there, and all of these are available on the MECLA website down here. From there, we also developed 6 different fact sheets. So these were all to provide more detail on elements that we were covering in the specifications, and based on feedback and discussions we were having with the government agencies and their supply chains at the time. So things around how to implement low carbon concrete, what are the different materials we're talking about, so the SCMs, and other materials like recycled concrete aggregate and manufactured sand. And then we were receiving a lot of frequently asked questions, so we've got a fact sheet on that, and also one around how to calculate embodied carbon of a mix when you don't have an environmental product declaration. Again, they are all available online to go look at. This year, the work that we've been doing that's built on that work is we've then taken the specification requirements, and we've been working with 10 councils across New South Wales, so 5 in metropolitan Sydney, and then 5 across New South Wales in everywhere from Wagga Wagga through to Byron Council, to run sessions with them, firstly to provide education of what low carbon concrete is, and then to go into the detail of how can you, who are the key stakeholders to include, and how can you actually implement it on your projects. A runoff from that was we then ran an event through the Hunter Joint Organisation. So we brought together all of the councils within the Hunter region, and also a large number of concrete suppliers, both the large ones that are across the whole of Australia, but also smaller suppliers that might only be supplying concrete to the Hunter region. And we had a in-person and online event where the focus was around understanding what is available to the from the concrete suppliers. So, and also the councils talking from a side of what they are going to look for in terms of specifying low carbon concrete. And a fantastic outcome of that event was that one of the councils, Macquarie, are now working with one of the suppliers to construct a pavement out of a mix with a higher level of cement replacement. And then all the other councils in the area are going to come and have a session, a lunch and a technical session with the supplier, and look at look at the pavement, and also work to understand if there are any barriers and risks in terms of the contractors using it on site. And finally, so I'm rushing through these so that we can get to actually speaking with the panelists. We obviously weren't able to work with all councils across New South Wales, and we're aware in other states as well. And so we have created a guide that talks to the main aspects that we covered in those training sessions. And so this is around an overview of what low carbon concrete is, focused on how to use it in practice and how to start to actually bring it into your projects, and mapping out the different stakeholders and where they sit against an action plan of every step and what you should do. This will be available shortly. It's just going through review at the moment. So once it is available, we will be putting it onto the MECLA website and sharing it with yourselves. And Alberto, I don't know if you wanted to, so I think the main, oh yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Lauren. So yes, as a call to action, these resources are available at MECLA, and we will be continuing this work through hopefully the MECLA Working Groups Council. So I will extend that invitation to everyone here. If you're not in the MECLA Working Groups, please do reach out. There's a way to book an appointment if you're not part of MECLA, so we could onboard you and continue these conversations on that MECLA website. Thank you. So moving on to the panelists, panel section on demand side, I would like to introduce everyone to Cameron Henry, a Senior Asset Manager within Northern Beaches Council, and Oliver Ashworth, Project Manager for Capital Projects at Woollahra Municipal Council.
G'day.
G'day. Cameron, I got a question for you. We took Northern Beaches Councils through this program and tried to raise awareness. 2 sessions, first one introductory, second a bit of a workshop trying to understand how best to implement low carbon concrete within your councils. That program has come to an end. Could you let me know what is the status of low carbon concrete within your council?
I think it's been a good journey. There was a very mixed understanding in the organisation about low carbon concrete across the various divisions that deliver capital projects and maintenance projects, and our engineers all together. We've got, when I say mix, I mean we've got various people like myself that have been involved in low carbon concrete delivery projects for the last 4 years. Yet we have other sections of council that are discover that to be a new thing, and so this process has helped us all talk together about where to head from here and how to standardise that type of thing into the organisation, and that's working. It's a journey. It's we've got a lot of big projects now that are fully specified with low carbon concrete projects, large community buildings, large footpath programs, and parks projects that are all including it now in their specifications, and which is looks like we're heading in the right direction. We're also working on, when I say standardising, bringing it into our standard procurement phases so that our existing panel contractors that are out there delivering concrete projects are all up to speed with what our minimum requirements are, including low carbon concrete in those specifications nowadays. So back to what Lauren was saying about the concrete performance being a 25 or 32 MPa concrete, is the conversation we've had internally about what our standard engineering drawings and specifications are for our products, such as curb and gutter, footpaths, etc. Historically, our engineers were specifying the precise amount of Portland cement required to deliver that, and so they've all now agreed to maintain it as performance-based engineering specification, which is enabling the LCC to be available product and achieve higher level objectives. So
that's fantastic. So we are aware of industry wanting to move towards these performance-based type specifications, but I think a key component to that is having a council that feels comfortable talking about embodied carbon through this metric, as opposed to just using that cake recipe of 50% SEM replacement, which the specifications that we develop provide that target in the both SEM replacement, but also performance-based method. That's great news. Similar question to Oliver. Woollahra Municipal Council, you guys participated in the low emission specifications program. Could you let me know status of low carbon concrete?
Yeah, so off the back of the meetings that we held previously, we formed our own LCC working group consisting of the engineering department, capital works, civil works maintenance, procurement, and environmental and sustainability teams. So we have just finished a pilot of the LCC at March and Lamb Street in Bellevue Hill. So the contractor was State Civil. They performed pretty well. They didn't have much feedback when placing the concrete. The conditions, the temperature was quite hot at the time of the project. So I'd say that what we discussed historically was curing times, which we didn't seem to have any impact. due to the climate. So yeah, the project's gone pretty well. I'm sure that only time will tell. We'll just check in intermittently and see how the concrete's performing. But yeah, no.
And Oliver, how do you feel about the kind of more so the implementation of this project feels a bit like ad hoc? Probably the first round you go, okay, this is the opportunity, let's implement, let's work on trialing low carbon concrete for this project. What are your thoughts about that kind of more long-term implementation of low carbon concrete, so updating procurement policies and the ways that your project teams operate? What do you think the opportunities or the challenges to that you see at the moment?
Yeah, so I'd say that the cost is a big one. So obviously, rising costs of everything at the moment is impacting councils. So it'd be good if we could have some sort of support initiatives for the low carbon concrete moving forward. Maybe some grant funding where it's implemented that we use the LCC concrete. And I suppose training the contractors as well is another one, and educating them on the placement and educating them on the product that they're using. A big one that myself and Mitchell discussed yesterday would be the language barrier with contractors. It's all well and good having these types of conversations, but when it comes to the contractors, it would have to look at an alternative of how they're educated. I'd say probably maybe 40% of workforces maybe aren't English, that the actual boots on the ground. So it'd be good to come up with a strategy on how we can educate those guys.
Nice. So you mentioned training for the people on the ground. You also mentioned need for more kind of costings and data that inform procurement policies. Obviously, the kind of the cost differential of low carbon concrete. Do you have any information on that? Like, are we talking 50%? Was it 10%? Do you have any idea what the cost differential was?
It was a bit of a funny procurement process, because we'd already engaged a contractor, and then we asked them to price the low carbon concrete. So essentially they could name the price, and obviously we haggled a little bit over what it was. But yeah, I think that there was a spreadsheet showing between 15 and 30%. That was pretty much the margins that we were working with.
Perfect. Thank you. And what about like buying from leadership or councillors? Have you been able to use existing kind of strategies to now work on low carbon concrete? But do you think we'll need further support from councillors and leadership?
Yeah, I think if we brought the awareness to the councillors, then they'd be quite supportive. It's just bringing that kind of awareness, and these kind of exercises help bring that awareness as well. So we'd be happy to continue in these types of forums to bring that awareness to the forefront.
Thank you, Oliver. My next question is to Cameron in similar fashion. So you guys gone through the process now, from raising awareness to what next? What are the remaining challenges that you see within your council?
Yeah, I think some of the, I'll use a bit of strange terminology, the low-hanging fruit left for us is to standardise our procurement panels, so that our engineering documentation is specifying low carbon concrete. We've been working with our sustainability team to prioritise sustainability in procurement phases as well, and looking at the rankings of that and being able to justify that in projects. That seems to be getting through. The messages are working. We're also we're sort of not making this up ourselves. It's the community is actually helping push us in this direction, and so we are talking when we try and put footpaths through parks. The community often push back and say we don't want any more concrete in our parks, and it opens up a conversation about what is concrete and what's the best solution to this, and let's use the best concrete, and we start heading off in this discussion about low carbon concrete being a long life product that's lower emissions. There are many people aware in the community that the production of Portland cement is one of the largest emissions polluters in the world, and it's something that they push to us as what are you doing about it, and why are you still using concrete? So it's a message that sort of sticks in that space. And we get support from our senior executive on heading off in this direction to make it a best-in-class solution here. I heard Oliver mention cost as a key component to it as well. Of course, cost is important. We were aware of cost as an issue when we took on our pilot projects in this space, and got the green light to absorb some costs should there be some additional labour costs or some other issues with it. We, at the end of those pilot projects, we discovered there were no increased costs. The concrete was still the same price per cubic metre. The manual handling, the laying were per the original program. So it didn't. Those examples were a couple of thousand metres of concrete, square metres, and were delivered without issue. So it gave us some confidence that we weren't dealing with big costs as a change. And so we're looking at it as where to from here. What's our next bit of concrete? I was talking with Lauren earlier about what is the ideal specification for low carbon concrete. Is it 30%, 40%? What's the sweet spot in that space? Because I think if you push that too far, you do start bringing in some additional costs. And I think an example of that would be as I've discovered, the Metro concrete specifications. They're quite stringent. They're probably beyond what we can deliver. They've got better budgets than us. So that type of thing.
And Cameron, so the specifications that we developed, they nominate a 50% SCM target, replacement target, but with a big caveat that we do encourage councils to engage the local supply chain like months in advance, because this is what ultimately informs what's possible. And we know that most councils would, like, the first concern is, are these products available in my local area? Can you let me know, like, what was your experience kind of reaching out to these local suppliers and contractors and asking for low carbon concrete?
Yeah, I took it. I had a few chats with a few of the contractors to discover whether they understood what I was going to be requesting from them in procurement, and discovered that I wasn't getting an ideal response. So I went and did the procurement phase anyway and made it mandatory. And in the response, so it forced them into provide a response or don't provide a response, and that worked. It forced them to have conversations. This is my contractors to have conversations with their suppliers, and about where are we going to batch this from? Do we have someone that can batch this? What are the recipes? Which batching plants are going to come from? And so I did that procurement, completed that project. That worked successfully. I went and did a second one, and I had 3 responses the second time around, which was great because from 3 different suppliers, 3 different batching plants. The previous ones discovered that they wanted to compete, so they pushed their batching plants to tool up for these projects, and they were quite happy to do so. There was no real friction there. It was just an understanding that there was no demand coming, so they weren't adapting. So that seemed to make the difference. Yeah.
Thank you. And similar question to you, Oliver. Can you maybe reflect back on what was the engagement with local suppliers and contractors?
Yeah, so that's undertaken by the contractor. So they would reach out directly. It's not something that we do. Well, within our department of capital projects, I can't speak for the civil works maintenance team, but they do get concrete directly. But again, I'm not too sure what the process is for that.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you, Oliver and Cameron, for sharing your insights. We would like to put a call to action to anyone that called to, again, reach out and try to join us at MECLA. We understand that there's currently this lack of demand, a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but we do think there's a couple of actions that we could take as a group to kind of trigger that demand, or at least signal interest. So one of them, kind of reaching out to suppliers with the same set of questions: where your products coming from, what batches cost, and hoping that as we get more information, it makes it easier for councils to inform their procurement policies. So again, to reach out to the MECLA website. So next, I would like to pass on to Lauren, who will be leading the supply side panel.
Thanks, Alberto. Sorry, I'm dealing with too many screens at once at the moment. So on my panel, I'm joined by 4 suppliers who are all supplying and working in New South Wales. So actually, I should have checked this. Have we got Ben join online? Ah,
Hi, just checking you can hear me.
Ben is here. Perfect. Okay, so we've got Ben Go from Boral and Dean Madero from Heidelberg. So Heidelberg Materials, so 2 concrete suppliers. Just for reference, Heidelberg Materials were Hansen and are now called Heidelberg Materials. We've also got Martin Lynch, who is from Cement Australia. So that is coming from the perspective of a cement supplier. And then finally, we've got Lucas Tomon from GeoQuest, who were previously called Reinforced Earth, and GeoQuest supply precast concrete solutions, both across the East Coast. So we've got everyone has put their cameras on. Perfect. Sorry, I'm going through a few things here. So going back to reminding ourselves of the definition of what low carbon concrete is, my first question to yourselves as suppliers, and we'll start with the concrete suppliers and then work through, is what are the available low carbon concrete products in New South Wales? And it'd be good just to, if Ben, we can start with you, if you can just touch on a bit around the variances that you can offer in terms of between metropolitan and regional areas. Sure.
Just checking you can hear me before I start.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
New South Wales, there's a broad range of products we supply in New South Wales. Low carbon concrete, as was mentioned before, the vast majority of the carbon embedded in concrete is a result of the Portland cement manufacture. So generally the availability of the range is tied to the availability of the supplementary cementitious materials. Now in New South Wales, that availability is relatively high in the industry because we have coal-fired power station fly ash available and blast furnace slag available. There are other SCMs that have been trialled in the industry, potentially to replace fly ash. Those power stations won't last forever. But availability, I'm mindful of the audience, but we typically have a 3-tiered range. We have what we call Envirocrete. So for most council applications, we're complying with AS 1379, which is specification supply concrete. So really we're just talking about strength, slump, drying shrinkage. So no parameters above that. So no particular long life design durability requirements or any special class type applications, maybe other than some curbing and things like that. So that Envirocrete range would generally be suitable for most council applications. And then there are other products. We have what we call Envirocrete Plus and Envisio, which are premium. So they're designed to perform much more like people would traditionally understand concrete. So Portland cement, fly ash based products, high early strength, low shrinkage. I would think though for council applications, generally that Envirocrete tier would be the most suitable. Availability is good in New South Wales in the industry. Sydney metropolitan area is fully covered with the entire product range. Plants have large capacity. They have a lot of access to raw materials. Newcastle as well. and Canberra and the Illawarra. So those major centres, the availability is very good. In other areas, we do have lower carbon products, but not always would, say, blast furnace slag be available unless there was a project large enough. So they wouldn't always have the range that a metropolitan area would have. Often low carbon goes hand in hand with high durability and low heat and other positive characteristics. So if, say, there was a major infrastructure project in a region that may not necessarily have carried blast furnace slag, and it does, then by default they would be able to supply the lower carbon range at the same time. But as a general rule in New South Wales, the supply is quite broad.
Yeah, so generally what's Ben saying there is that for the large infrastructure projects, the concrete plants have generally been upgraded to enable high levels of cement replacement to be supplied there. So it means, yeah, if there's a project happening near you, then it's likely there is supply. Dean, I'll come back to you with a longer question later, Dean, but do you have anything to add from Heidelberg's perspective here?
Just to reiterate Ben's comments there, would be the same in Heidelberg materials. So the proximity to those supplementary cementitious materials, as well as the capacity of the plant, and that's generally higher in those larger centres, as outlined by Ben. In terms of the product range, so Heidelberg Materials has an enrich range, and that we call them 30, 40, and 50. So, and that depicts the amount of carbon that's been reduced from a reference. And for those more high spec type projects and applications, we have an Ecoterra product. So in terms of the amount of coverage that the companies like ours have in the industry, the applications that councils will be looking for to cover would be well and truly looked after there. So I mean, these products have been used in everything from 30, 40, 50, 70 plus story high-rise buildings through to footpaths. So I'd say we'll have that pretty well covered. Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah, fantastic. I think a key part there is for those areas, the regional areas, is that early engagement and just calling up and speaking to you guys to understand what is available. And so Martin, from Cement Australia's perspective, could you provide a view as to more on the, I suppose, the packaged product side, or also cement, but yeah.
Thanks, Lauren. So from Cement Australia's point of view, we're talking about cement and cementitious materials specifically. We have two initiatives at the company that are aimed at decarbonising cement. One is through increased SCM, such as fly ash and slag, and the other is alternate kiln fuels, such as biomass, tyres to replace coal in our cement kilns. In terms of low carbon cement packaged materials, Cement Australia has released a low carbon cement product in 20 kilo bags and 1 tonne bags. They're available through retail chains such as Mitre 10 and Home Hardware and other small landscaping suppliers right across Australia. So if you go down to those retail stores, they don't stock it, please ask for it. Low carbon cement is a fly ash blend. It offers a 30% reduction in embodied carbon compared to 100% GP. So the uses for those products are either as cement mortar in masonry applications or in concrete applications where bags would be used. So we produce an EPD. We have that online on our website that shows what that embodied carbon value is in comparison to GP. And we're getting plenty of good feedback and take up on that product.
Fantastic. And I know you've been trialling it with one of the low carbon cement with City of Ryde Council as well. So Lucas, can you give us an overview of what's going on in the world of precast elements?
Thanks, Lauren. My name's Lucas with GeoQuest. GeoQuest is a company, quick overview, design and supplies earth retaining structures, and we've got a couple of manufacturing yards around Australia. We are involved with other associations as the Concrete Institute of Australia and Precast Association, and on those fronts, there's a lot happening on the precast side with low carbon concrete, with especially on the infrastructure side, which is a market that we typically get involved with or is our main bread and butter.
What levels of cement replacement are you typically using? And
so historically, we've gone from 10 to 25% from 2016 to 2020 in the precast space. And then in 2020, we were asked by one of our good clients to jump to 50%, of which I'm now trying to push that to 100, what's known as a geopolymer, in collaboration with other companies. I think it's been mentioned here, and there's a common theme that this isn't tackled by just one stakeholder. It's a bit of a collaboration with a number. Hence why I just wanted to just put in those other associations because it was mentioned around training, Concrete Institute of Australia, which I volunteer on as well. We actually try and put out some training sessions to help a range of people build that knowledge base and be more comfortable. But yeah, the precasters, we're definitely pushing the boundaries in the precast space. It's a little bit more different to in situ pours. With that, we can control the environments a little bit more, which is also very important with utilizing new materials and in concrete. And it's a bit of a safe space, or there's more control, so the degree of quality can be increased. So just as comments, I would probably suggest to local governments to have a look at what procurement they've got in terms of the precast space, because you can play around with the different materials there, and you don't have other factors like distance, time, temperature from batching to then pouring. They're a little bit more controlled, so you can develop mixes a little bit better, and that's how we've essentially gone about it and utilized that. So
fantastic. So a barrier that we're often hearing, and I think it is a bit of a previous experience in the past, and hopefully some misconceptions we can start, myth busting we can start to overcome, is around contractors having issues with the use of workability and using low carbon concrete on site. I'm going to go to Dean. What's your experience with working with contractors and them using low carbon concrete?
Yeah, well, certainly there is sometimes some apprehension. I will say that a lot of these products have now been around for some years. So in large part, we've been supplying hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of these types of products. So it depends on the maturity and of the area, and our customers tend to be contractors that have used our concrete for some time. So in large part, we've overcome a lot of the apprehension around that when needed. We support the contractors on site in the field, and even better than that prior by providing information about what may be different. And in large part, though, the industry has been providing these types of products for some time. SCMs are not new. They've been used in concrete for decades, and that's really important to note. And in fact, a lot of specifications demand SCMs are used in very large quantities. So so we're very practiced at producing them, and in the times that the contractor does have some apprehension there, I guess it's a collaborative approach that we need to take, and making sure that the properties of the concrete that are expected materialise on the day. And now, from my experience, it's definitely in recent times when low carbon concrete is specified and a project needs it, then there's we always work through whatever issues there is. But as I say, we've been doing this for a long time, and producers generally know what they're doing around the types of issues that come up with workability and set time, and sometimes early age strength. So they're all conversations that can be had earlier the better, and we can definitely work through them.
Yep. And so Ben, if I was a contractor that never worked with, what would be surprising? They probably worked with it and just not realised they've worked with it. But if I've come along and I have never worked with it before, what would you say?
Yeah, so as Dean mentioned, SCMs in New South Wales have been around for a long time, so it's highly likely contractors have used low carbon concrete and not known it when SCMs were put into concrete for other reasons. So when I think about the application, so a council application, when you're, if you're pouring something off form, talk about precast, you talk about cast in situ, but off form. The product may require a slightly higher nominal slump, just depending on the application. But generally speaking, particularly if people have been operating in the Sydney market or the other large centres in New South Wales, they're likely to have been exposed to these products and these raw materials without knowing it. So it's unlikely to be very different to what they're used to. If I think of products that, or applications where it's set and forget, so if I think of pedestrian footpaths or pavements, that early engagement's important. Dean mentioned set time, placeability, bleed profile, particularly if, you say broom finishing a product and you're walking away from it. So things like that set, understanding the set time, understanding the concrete properties are important, but they are generally easily overcome. Probably the biggest hurdle to overcome is that initial perception when someone hasn't used it and they may have, heard a comment from someone that, this stuff's sticky, or this stuff doesn't bleed, or this stuff doesn't set. It's generally not hard to, give comfort and remove that perception. A little bit of, site attendance, support early on. Once they see the product, pump it, place it, finish it, and are comfortable with it, then normally it's something that they stick with.
Most of my job as a materials engineer working at Arup is people thinking the issue is the material and it being something completely not to do with it, and having to,
That's why Dean and I have very busy full-time jobs. Yes.
Yeah, it keeps us very busy. So I might talk a bit about cost now, and I understand that we can't be going into too much detail around costs if we're anti-competitive reasons, but it would just be good to have a high level and overview. We've seen the perspective from the councils, and often I think a lot around the cost we can see is a risk factor that contractors put in. I might start from Cement Australia's perspective, where, in general terms, what would you say is the cost comparison between traditional concrete mix and mixes with higher levels of cement replacement?
Well, if I talk specifically about packaged cement, so the wholesale price differential is negligible between 100% GP cement and low carbon cement. So if I also like to sort of state that we do have and have had for a long time a builder's cement, which is also a fly ash blend. The reason we've introduced low carbon cement as a new product is because inherently SCMs, once you get over a certain level, have a drop off in early strength. Our low carbon cement includes a green cement additive, which boosts that early strength. So you get a comparable strength curve, early and late strength to GP. So in terms of costs, I've answered that question, but in terms of performance, the performance is comparable. And we've recently trialled Well, Ryde Council has recently trialled the product on a curb and gutter extrusion project, and they've come back saying that they're quite happy with it, and there's no notable difference to GP in that application.
Fantastic. I'm just hearing no barriers here. Lucas, from a precast perspective, I imagine there is a cost impact. What does that look like?
There is a cost impact, but I agree it's probably factored to two aspects: the risk and if there was more demand, there'd be more supply, there'd be more competitiveness in the materials. But I would agree it's negligible depending on the component of the breakup of the package and how much the concrete is a factor of. Our earth retaining structures are quite thin precast elements, so for us, it's negligible for most clients. But when push comes to shove, it could be the aspect that does come over. But as feedback and from my experience, I'd say that these are factors that need to be considered, and a bit of planning from all stakeholders helps. Factoring in a proposal potentially to do a trial with a contractor would be beneficial just to start helping, because I'm thinking about the very smaller concreters who might not have that risk profile as a large organisation like GeoQuest is. That could help them and help the knowledge base, and then start those conversations between those smaller companies and smaller sole traders to start speaking to one another and saying, no, this actual material is, yes, there are some aspects you need to address, but it then reduces that risk profile, which then benefits everyone and then promotes more use of it. So there currently is a cost barrier to answer the question, but I think it's only a matter of time before it becomes parity. And that's where we're looking at, where we understand that there is a cost element, but we are trying to develop mixes where they're either negligible or it's something that we just wear to promote more of low carbon adoption.
Yeah, and I think I'm just aware of time. I might just provide an overview of my perspective from the concrete supply side, and then Ben, Dean, you can add. But for concrete that's being supplied to councils, typically we're going to be looking at up to 30–50% carbon reduction, and at those levels you'll be finding, if you're not looking to achieve the same high early age strength, then it generally will be negligible. Earlier, both Ben and Dean were talking about their more premium products. So I think it was Ecotera, you said, Ben. I might be saying it. No, that's another supplier's. But basically, there will be different. Each supplier has a range, and so they'll have their range that just includes cement replacement, and they'll have ones that are more premium that are then meeting the same high early age strength, and that's the products that will generally come with a cost premium that is typically 10–20%. Ben or Dee, I don't know if there's anything you want to add there.
Oh, generally, yeah, that's generally right, Lauren.
Yeah.
You know, the more you want, you know, the more we have to design the concrete to fulfill. So that you know, that might be you know, in addition to early age strength, you might have, you know, some challenging shrinkage requirements that want to be met, or flexural strength, or modulus elasticity. The list goes on, and that's when you know, the price goes up for the concrete because of the performance. And so yeah, it's proportional to the requirements. That if we're just talking about carbon, we sort of start there with basic concrete. It's very low to start with, and then it goes up from there depending on the requirements.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to give a minute at the end for wrap up. So let's give us about 2 more minutes to ask a few more questions. So Martin's already spoken about examples with City of Ryde. Often people want to see precedents of where this has been done before with other councils. Has anyone got any examples they want to share of where you have been providing low carbon concrete for a council in New South Wales?
We could probably look at most footpaths in Sydney, and by default they would be low carbon concrete. We do when Boral had a national program for the lower carbon concrete range. There was focus on those sorts of applications where traditionally it's been probably more commercial multi-res type applications. Not in Sydney, but we've got a great example of a decorative Invisia footpath along the Nobbies Beach area in Newcastle. So I'm not sure if there's anyone from a council up in Newey, but you know, if anything, that was to prove to ourselves that you could have a low carbon decorative product. So typically with decorative, you're adding an oxide which has its own complexities around performance. So, but look, there would be plenty of examples around Sydney where we've supplied into councils, and even if the product wasn't branded as such, that it would typically be low carbon by default.
So I'm hearing, well, this was one thing when I tried to Google and just trying to find some case studies. I feel like we don't talk about them enough. I know in the past, Borough, for example, you've sent us a list of, I think it was 2023, you sent 380 projects in New South Wales that are using your low carbon products. And so I think there is something there in the suppliers talking more about where it's being used, but also when councils are using it, sharing that with others. I think it's being done a lot more than people actually realise. In terms of any resources and tools that you could think of that might support suppliers, councils with adopting low carbon concrete, do any of you have any? Is there anything that you're aware of that could be shared with them, or is it the great guide that we've created will have everything in it?
Look, suppliers will generally have you know, publicly released EPDs, that sort of information. But my advice, being a biased technologist, so my advice would be, first step would be reach out to your concrete supplier, ask to speak with the technical expert, and but we can take you through you know, what's available, what to do, what not to do.
Great. Any of the other panelists want to add anything? Sorry, final minute. We should have made this an hour-and-a-half session.
Yeah, just I agree with Ben. Talk to your supplier, get an understanding of what's available. If you're at the design phase, talk to your architect. We advertise on our product on Archify, and there's a CPD presentation that talks about decarbonising cement and concrete on that. So the more early engagement, the better you'll be set up to have a good outcome.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I know, yeah, I'm someone who 2 years ago didn't really like concrete, and now I probably dream about it every day. I could talk about it for hours. So a bit of a call to action here again for councils. Yeah, please do stay in touch, and we are looking to connect through the MECLA council working group as part of the guide that will be coming out. It will be including suggested wording around what to put into your tenders, and also around just what kind of questions to speak to a supplier about. And so here is an example list of some of the questions that we would suggest that you, when speaking to a supplier, these are some of the kind of things you could be asking to start to get a feel for what are the capabilities of the local concrete plants in your area. And I think over to Kati for final closeout.
Thanks, Lauren. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Thanks to all the speakers and panelists who took their time in the day and talked about their work here today. this is the kind of work that we want to continue supporting at MECLA and within MECLA, and we would love for you to join us if you haven't already. So we've put in the links how to join onboarding meetings, and we'd love to have you become part of our local councils or other working groups. I'd love to, before I thank everyone else, I want to point out that MECLA has a concrete specification guidance that is currently receiving an update, which will be going live very soon. That guide will feature a much larger range of EPDs than the previous one, and you will also be having the ability to look at the EPDs on a state-by-state basis, and we'll continue working on that. There'll be an event coming up to that soon, which leaves me to say a thank you to all of those that help keep MECLA running. That's the working groups, the chairs and participants that put all their time and efforts into delivering the great work that they continue to produce, and that constitutes MECLA. I'd like to thank the organisations that provide their financial and in-kind support, and also the other members of the MECLA Secretariat who keep the show running behind the scenes, such as Hudson Worsley, Monica Richter, my colleague Lexi Barnstein. Without all of you, we wouldn't be here today. Recording will be made available on the website afterwards, and you'll receive an email once that's all up. And yes, do join us for our next meetings. You can always check the website or subscribe to our newsletter. And thank you all for joining us today.
And in terms of the Q&A questions, we will be compiling those, and the ones that are, there are, I think, a few that are directed at specific suppliers and so on, but the ones that are more general from a council, or that we will be including in the council, our guide. It's going to have a big frequently asked questions section at the back with lots of responses. So watch this space.
Yes, wonderful. And that will include the questions raised and comments raised in the mentees. So thank you all for joining us today. Bye.
Thank you.